What's going on, everybody? My name is Aiden and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, it's another Zach LaVine video. Shock horror, the Chicago Bulls, the only topic of discussion, at least one of the main topic of discussions, is Zach LaVine. And I saw another article, ladies and gentlemen, shock horror, another article reaction, but this one is quite interesting. Basically suggesting that we may see Zach LaVine play or come off the bench for the Chicago Bulls this season. Now, it's quite interesting in the terms of the way that they phrase it, but ultimately I want to give my opinion about this current situation and whether or not I can see it happening for the Chicago Bulls, and is it a realistic thing to see Zach LaVine come off the bench for the Chicago Bulls. Let's discuss all that and more in this video. But before we get any further, if you like the video, you want to see more from me, drop a like, drop a follow, and or subscribe if you are new. And let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls and whether or not you see Zach LaVine coming off the bench as a viable option for this upcoming season. Now, I must admit, it doesn't necessarily say 100% for a fact that it's coming off the bench, but it does say that they may stagger his minutes in order to get him to play more with the bench units, which is quite interesting. Now, I will take you back to the first part. Is it a realistic option to see Zach LaVine come off the bench? No. Simple as that. I'm going to put that right there. No, it's not realistic whatsoever. Now, maybe if he comes off a serious injury, that's where you could probably see Zach LaVine come off the bench. If I'm not mistaken, I think there were a couple of games where Zach LaVine dealt with his knee issue. Maybe not, I'm not sure. But there was maybe a couple of games where he came off the bench first and then put himself right back into the starting lineup, ready to go. And he never really looked back since. In that situation, I could see Zach LaVine coming off the bench. Let's just say, hypothetically, he gets a big injury. I'm not going to give, the type of injury, but let's just say he's out for maybe 2 months of the season. And then all of a sudden, he does come back and he's ready to play for the rest of the season. He may start off the bench and then continue to push his way through the starting lineup. But from the very beginning of the season, since he will be ready for Game 1, he will not come off the bench. There's just no way. He's too talented to come off the bench. Now look, maybe in a contending team, you could make the argument. If you're the Boston Celtics, for example, and you go and trade Zach LaVine, there's a conversation to be had about whether or not he should be a bench option for that team or not. But for pretty much 28, I would say, 29 teams out there in the NBA, if they are trading for Zach LaVine, he is a starter in that team. Now, that's not to say he's going to be their best player. That's not to say he's going to be the superstar caliber player that can lead them to a championship. But ultimately, he is good enough to start in almost every single team in the NBA. That's just what I believe. You can sue me if you like, but that's just how I feel about Zach LaVine's situation. Number 2. Have you seen the Bulls bench someone that's worth a ridiculous amount of money? The only person that comes to mind for me is Otto Porter. And let's be honest, Otto Porter also started quite a few games for the Chicago Bulls. He was making $27 million a season, I believe, when we traded for him. He was a starter for a while, and he only really came off the bench when this new coaching staff and new regime came into play, and the injuries were just too big to overcome. And Zach LaVine is a better player than Otto Porter. No disrespect, I know he's got a championship, but at the end of the day, Zach LaVine's a better player. He has been for quite some time. So, again, it's not the same situation. Someone on Zach LaVine's money is not going anywhere to the bench. But then you turn to the key word of staggering. Staggering his minutes. The way that I view a staggering his minutes type of situation is that he starts, but ultimately, most of his minutes will come with the bench unit. Now look, this has happened for a lot of the Chicago Bulls players during, I guess, their time as a starter. I often view DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan is someone that plays with the bench unit when he did play for the Bulls. He played with the bench unit a lot. And that's because you needed DeMar DeRozan to play with the bench unit. And you could say that staggering his minutes so he could play with the bench unit. But ultimately, the way that I view that is just simple and obvious minute rotations, where the bench unit needs a starter in there. I remember one game specifically where we had an all-bench unit. I think it was one of the very earliest games of the season. Maybe it was against Miami. And we just had an all-bench unit lineup out there. No starter whatsoever. And we got cooked. We got destroyed in that game. And the bench unit was so bad in that game. And from then on, everybody complained that we needed a starter in there to help stabilize that bench unit. And that's just how I view the situation now. We need a starter in there to stabilize the bench unit. We used DeMar DeRozan in that role. In some games, we used Nikola Vucevic in that role. I don't see an issue in using Zach LaVine in that role. So if staggering his minutes ultimately means that he will be mainly with the bench unit and playing with that bench unit, I don't see the problem in that. I don't really see the issue in that. But the key things that we need to talk about in this is what his minutes are going to look like, and does he finish games? Those are two situations that I think we need to take a deeper dive into. So his minutes, I think, is going to look the same. I think he's going to get 30 plus minutes a night. And ultimately, I don't see the problem in that. Again, for the Bulls, if they were really going to bench Zach LaVine or even give him a minutes restriction this season, I mean, it's bringing toxicity to a new level for both sides. If you want Zach LaVine out of Chicago, the best way that I see that happening is that you give Zach LaVine the time and the opportunities that he needs to thrive in this environment. Whether A, he likes the environment and maybe he doesn't need to leave, that's probably on the less likely side, or he earns his way to a trade. And you don't do that by benching him. You know what benching him is going to do? The trade value is already very low. You may as well shove it underneath the dirt if you're going to put him in the bench unit. Because there's no way anyone is going to look at Zach LaVine and say, hey, this guy's on a max contract and he's playing off the bench for one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference. That's not going to help him. That's not going to help the Bulls either. So Zach LaVine, I think, is going to get starters minutes and he's going to be in the starting role. Does he finish games? Well, I would have to say the answer to that one is yes as well. You can stagger his minutes all you like. You can make him play with the bench unit for the majority of the time all you like. But I think the fact of the matter is, whether you say he's coming off the bench or he's playing with the bench, there are two things that I believe 100% is going to happen. One, he's going to start the game with the starting lineup. He's going to play with Kobe. He's going to play with Josh Giddey. He's going to play with Patrick Williams. He's going to play with Nikola Vucevic. Assuming that's the lineup, he's going to be in there, ladies and gentlemen, and he's going to be playing in that lineup. He's also going to finish the game. He's going to finish the game. He's going to close it out. And he's probably going to close it out with the majority of the starters as well. So yeah, maybe in between he's playing with the bench unit. Maybe in between he is playing with a whole lot of guys that probably need him in order to continue going on runs or to maybe really push the tempo for the Bulls. Because let's be honest, I don't want to, maybe if we're trying to lose, I'd love to see an all-5 bench mob out there. But if you're trying to win, you need a starter in there as well. And whether that's Zach LaVine or anybody else, that's just logic, in my opinion. But he will start games, he will end games. So I don't really know where that leaves us with this article, but all I will say is, I just don't think much of this, to be honest, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't think much of him playing majority with the bench unit. I don't think much of the fact that, you know, this could be a downgrade of a role for him. I don't think of it like that. I kind of think of it as someone has to do it. We have seen superstar caliber players do it before. Zach LaVine is only going to be another one that you can add to that list as probably our go-to option, our go-to scoring threat to help bail this bench unit out of potential opportunities. It only makes sense to see Zach LaVine at some point throughout the game, second quarter, third quarter, maybe midway through the fourth quarter. Maybe the rests that he gets will be different compared to what you normally see, but it makes sense to see him play with at least some of the game with the bench unit. But the fact of the matter is, he will finish out the games, he'll close them out. Billy Donovan would be a fool to leave him out of those lineups. And he will start the game, because it just hurts everybody, including ourselves, no matter how much you think of it as it won't hurt, or how much you think of it as this is a way to treat LaVine because he wants out. It's going to hurt LaVine. It's going to hurt his trade value, and it's going to hurt the Bulls. It will hurt us if we do something like that. So, stagger his minutes all you like. Those big outcomes, I think, is what's going to happen regardless. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay tuned for more. Take care, and peace.